Our Bella Radermacher is August's little INDY warrior, and I'm her mom, Tabitha.
And I'm her dad, Travis. And our journey started back on December 8th, and we didn't even know it.
Yeah, you wanna carry me? Carry me.
Oh, careful, kid. You're too heavy for him to carry.
Carry me.
Careful.
Carry you.
Piggyback ride? Tab and her mother went on a shopping spree that day, so I was home left with the kids, and I was pretty excited about it. Later on that night, got Ian to bed. Bella started complaining of pain on her right side. Never seen her in pain like that before. So I called Tab. Her and her mom came home. My parents came over to watch Ian for the night, and I took Bella into the ER. We got there, and the first thing they had said was it's probably constipation, and that's kind of what we went with for the next month and a half as we watched this mass keep getting bigger and bigger on her tummy, I guess. Till the one day we finally got to meet with our primary doctor and took one x-ray, and they sent us right away to Sanford and Sioux Falls. And
We initially had the appointment set up with our primary doctor thinking it was a hernia, as it was a little bump right below her ribs, and it didn't hurt when you touched it, and it just slowly got bigger. So that's what prompted our visit to our primary doctor. And then, as Trav said, she shipped us off to Sanford and Sioux Falls so we could begin our very long journey. And so Bella was diagnosed with hepatoblastoma stage 4 liver cancer on April 28th, 2017. After a kind of a tough biopsy, the surgeon went in to grab a little sample of this mass, and instead of the bleeding stopping, it actually kept bleeding. So instead of a small incision, it ended up being her whole abdomen. So that was a little tough. She was in the ICU for 2 nights before being moved up to the main floor. And after a couple days of resting and recovering from the surgery, she began her first round of chemo. It was kind of hard as a mother who is more into natural medicine to be totally accepting of beginning chemo. As most people know, it's a poison. But we put a lot of trust in God and knew that this is what we had to do in order to keep our Bella here with us. We did 4 rounds of chemo, and we watched her AFP, which is a tumor marker that is specific for liver cancer, and that slowly started dropping. We started off in over 1 million, and then it slowly dropped. She had 2 spots on her lungs, and so those were removed in August of 2017. And then after that, we were placed on the transplant list because due to the condition of Bella's liver, where the tumors were, there was no way where we could easily cut out the tumor and she could still keep her liver. We needed a whole new liver. So we were placed on the transplant list in September, and we got the call within a couple hours of being placed active on the list. So we headed down to the cities. We were doctoring at the U of M Children's Hospital, and we waited 3 days before we were finally told that the donor family decided to back up out of donating their loved one's liver. That was pretty traumatic for us, as we were so close to being, or closer to being done with this journey. But then later that week, we got news that Bella's AFP, the tumor marker, had actually jumped. So we needed to do more chemo. There was concern that the tumor was either getting more active or had spread, so we also had more scans done. It was also a very trying time again. We just had to place our trust in God and follow with what He had laid out in front of us. So we did 2 more rounds, and then the AFP was not dropping any. So we're kind of at a standstill for the month of November of 17. And our oncologist was reaching out to everyone in the nation. She had a lot of colleagues everywhere as to what type of chemo to do, what is our next step, because she wasn't quite ready for a transplant because the AFP needed to be showing signs of decreasing versus increasing. So at the end of November, the plan was to begin this next round of chemo, which is a little bit tougher. It's known as ICE, and the name itself is kind of scary.
It's intimidating, yeah.
It's stronger, and it's not a last resort, but one of the last steps to last resort chemos. So Bella had a round of that in December, and as expected, her counts dropped rapidly. She was neutropenic, meaning she had no immune system, so we, of course, bubbled her up and we stayed home, didn't go anywhere. She did end up getting a fever, and we had to haul butt to Sioux Falls and hang out there. We spent our first holiday in the hospital, which was Christmas. Not something I would ever want to do again. And then we also celebrated Bella's birthday in the hospital by actually being discharged that day. So that was exciting. January came, we did another round of ICE, same thing. She had a fever, had to go down there to Sioux Falls to recover, to make sure there's no infections. And then after that round, we were sent, we had more scans done and an AFP check, and it showed that the numbers were dropping, so we were okay to be placed on the transplant list. We were sent to the U to do a quick checkup to make sure everything looked good, and placed active on the transplant list. And with the transplant list, due to Bella's condition, we were placed more towards the top of the list versus more towards the bottom. Hepatoblastoma is a very rare and serious cancer for children, and it's very aggressive, as we learned with Bella's journey. And so as soon as we were placed active, it was it 2 days maybe?
Yeah, just under 2 days. We got the call for the new transplant, and then also the AFP, I believe our surgeon said, was starting to go back up again. So now it was kind of like we needed this liver to go through if we're going to stay ahead of this thing. And by the grace of God, it did. Was it 11 hours for the transplant, I think it took?
Yes,
the longest. Long 11 hours.
Longest 11 hours. And then we spent the next just about 3 weeks in the ICU, and then 3 weeks on the main floor to recover and regroup and get used to this whole host of medications Bella would have to start taking, including anti-rejection meds, so her body doesn't reject the new liver. And then we were discharged to the Ronald McDonald House here in Minneapolis, and we hung out for a couple weeks, and then Bella's liver numbers, the function of the liver, those numbers started creeping up, so we had to be admitted again. They did a biopsy, and they found that there was some rejection of the liver, so we did therapy for that. We found out she was basically steroid-resistant rejection. So normally they treat rejection with steroids, high-dose steroids, and we did 2 rounds of that and no results, so they jumped up to the next tier of therapy, and that proved to work for Bella. So after that, we were again discharged to the Ronald, and a couple weeks later,
yeah, 2 weeks or something,
yeah, we were sent on our way to Sioux Falls
to do, at the time, what we thought would have been the second of the last 2 rounds of ICE we had to do, because the plan was after transplant we would have had to do another 2 rounds of ICE to make sure we got everything out of her system. But we got that 1 round done, and it just kind of set her back so far, and then they started thinking that she might have had infection in her port, so we kind of just backed off and just finished with that 1 round of ICE afterwards. And so far it looks amazing. I mean, they got all the cancer and it's sitting really good, but now we just got to get the liver to get happy.
Right. Her last AFP check was at 8. So normal is between 0 and 8. And for hepatoblastoma patients, normal can be anywhere between 0 and 20, or minimal numbers. So for us, it was amazing to see it drop from over a million to 8. Like, that was just awesome. It gives me goosebumps still. So now we're kind of in a place where her liver is exhausted and damaged from what we think is the chemo. We've spent the last month and a half, so the beginning of June, in the hospital, trying to figure out what's going on. Her liver functions were actually increasing, so that was a problem. They looked at her bile ducts. She's had 3 stents placed and removed, all proving not to work for her. So this last step is they think it's just probably a drug-induced liver injury. So now we have to, they're going to give us 4 weeks of just hanging out with Ronald, frequent lab tests and weekly visits with the doctor. And hopefully those numbers get better, hopefully her jaundice gets better, and we can continue on with life. But if it doesn't, they have mentioned that we will have to do another liver transplant, which is very hard because I don't want to go through it again. Like, that was, once is enough, but if it is what it needs to be, then so be it. We'll be strong with the faith of God. So we're just kind of at the standstill point, and we're just enjoying every day with her. Every day is a gift, and so that's what we're kind of hanging on to right now.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to be an INDY warrior, or mom and dad of an INDY warrior? I think it's phenomenal being on this journey to be like, have this community of warriors, survivors, going through the same thing, because we all get it. And not saying that other people don't understand, but it's nice to have people that do understand, and they can support you with just a hug, because they know exactly the pain and the struggles you have gone through. So having just another community to support us through this, and then is awesome. I mean, it strengthens us. It gives us hope that we can just focus on Bella and not really have to worry about anything else. We know that other people are praying for us. Because I'll be honest, there are times where it is hard to pray because you lose hope that God's even there. So it's nice to have those other people there for you, praying for you. And
One, two, three.
Is that what the nurses use to
Mama.
take it?
Yeah.